Part 1. The Great Philosopher. Ludwig Wittgenstein once created a massive earthquake, shaking the entire foundation of Western philosophy, by publishing his only book during the early phase of his career, titled Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. In this tightly structured and robust work, he established an extremely rigorous system of thinking, aiming to dissect the root of the triangular relationship between language, thought, and objective reality, operating around humans. This revolutionary first surgical cut is known to the world as picture theory, a foundational doctrine asserting that the language we use for daily communication is not in essence a supernatural abstract entity, but merely a tool of pure mechanics, born with a single function to reflect real events occurring in the physical world. For the early thinking of Ludwig Wittgenstein, the world around us is not a messy collection of disconnected, meaningless objects, but a robust totality of facts and states of affairs actually existing and interacting together. When humans think and utter a statement, we are performing a highly technical act of constructing a corresponding logical picture to represent that event within the mind. If a statement or a word you utter cannot produce a clear, sharp and verifiable logical picture in the real world, then that language instantly loses truth value, becoming a chaotic mass of hollow emptiness and the dark seed generating all misunderstandings and human suffering. To prove the supreme practicality and undeniable robustness of picture theory, modern studies at Harvard University regarding cognitive psychology of symbols and human behavior have provided us with extremely valuable empirical evidence of precise scientific nature. Leading scientists at Harvard University conducted measurements of brain activity, proving that the human central nervous system possesses a unique operating mechanism where, before a word or a concept is spoken aloud, the brain must perform an automatic encoding process to convert the external material world into distinct mental pictures. When you hear or say the word table or pen, your brain does not merely receive dead characters or meaningless sounds, but immediately activates a logical image of a specific object with clear length, width, color, and function existing within three-dimensional physical space. Extensive research from Harvard University indicates that human perception depends entirely on the ability to establish a one-to-one logical relationship between surface language symbols and the corresponding material entities in real life. If this one-to-one relationship is broken, meaning when you hear or speak a word while the brain is completely helpless, unable to construct any real picture, the logical processing regions in the frontal lobe will immediately fall into a state of information chaos, creating psychological pressure and severe cognitive conflict. This aligns perfectly and astonishingly with the definition of the philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein when he declared that the logical structure of language must be regulated, limited, and accurately reflect the logical structure of objective reality without deviating even a single millimeter. Recognizing this mechanical operating nature of the mind, we will together thoroughly grasp a core and most practical metaphor that Ludwig Wittgenstein wished to convey through picture theory, stating language is a map while the robust life reality out there is the actual land we walk upon daily. A map is only considered correct, scientific, and valuable for use if, and only if, every symbol, road, river, and mountain drawn on that map accurately reflects the coordinates and terrain of the real land it represents. If you hold a map drawn based on vague imagination, a map completely deviating from the actual terrain of the universe, you will certainly get lost, falling into a state of exhaustion, panic, and ultimately falling down the deep abyss of suffering and helplessness. In daily real life, most humans are torturing themselves and destroying surrounding relationships by using completely fake language maps drawn by themselves. When you tell yourself, "My life is a series of miserable failures," you are using an extremely bad and distorted language map to impose upon the reality land, which is inherently very robust and multicolored. The objective reality at that moment only contains specific events that can be drawn into clear pictures, such as failing a recruitment exam, being rejected for a project, or losing a specific amount of money in your account. Those are real events, possessing clear images and completely manageable solutions. But the phrase miserable failure is a hollow, abstract label, an error symbol on the language map, blinding your eyes and making you completely helpless, unable to see other paths and real resources existing on the reality land of your own. This practical surgical cut by Ludwig Wittgenstein will help us completely shatter the linguistic illusions imprisoning human souls and minds. From generation to generation, he asserted fiercely and coldly that a word only truly has meaning if and only if it describes a real entity or state of affairs verifiable in the physical world around us. Therefore, all abstract concepts that humans stay awake at night tormenting themselves over, arguing fiercely and crying painful tears for, such as absolute happiness, eternal perfection, cruel destiny, or the injustice of fate, are actually hollow words. They are entirely linguistic ghosts created by the mind itself, generating pressure on its own because we are completely helpless in drawing a concrete, logical picture for those words in the objective, real world. You cannot use your eyes to point out what perfection looks like, whether it is round or square, how many kilograms it weighs, what color it has, and where its exact coordinates are within space. When you stubbornly chase after a hollow word, you are no different from a miserable traveler trying to find a gold treasure on a map drawn from an unreal fairy tale. The suffering, anxiety, and depression of modern humans do not stem from a lack of real resources, but from being deceived spectacularly by the sophisticated surface structure of language, making them mistakenly believe that as long as a word exists in the dictionary, there will definitely be a corresponding robust entity in real life for them to capture and possess. The extremely sharp intellectual surgery of early Ludwig Wittgenstein shares a deep, miraculous and consistent harmony with ancient Eastern philosophy, especially the doctrine of rectification of names in Confucianism and the dialectical arguments regarding the relationship between name and reality by the school of names during the spring and autumn and warring states periods. Eastern sages from thousands of years ago penetrated the nature of reality, realizing that social chaos, the degradation of human morality and the tragic miseries of human life all begin when names are not rectified, meaning when words are separated, inflated, distorted, and no longer reflect accurately the actual reality taking place. When language is abused to fabricate false values, fake standards unsupported by reality, humans will no longer live with raw, genuine, and robust experiences of real life. Instead, they switch to living parasitically in a world of titles and labels, the root of all disasters and factional conflicts, returning language to its proper mechanical position to reflect objective reality by Ludwig Wittgenstein is a great revolution to cleanse the human mind, forcing us to bravely face objective reality directly instead of hiding and deceiving ourselves in the maze of cumbersome dogmatic theories. Only when you bravely hold the weapon of picture theory, resolutely discarding all hollow words, bringing all utterances and thoughts back to real factual pictures, can you re-establish for yourself a line of thinking sharp as crystal, a steadfast, robust spirit, and a life completely free from the haunting ghosts of spoken words. Part 2. Intentionality shapes world. After using epochy to suspend bias, we face a tough, burning question. If labels disappear, what remains inside? Edmund Husserl answers with intentionality concept, stating a shocking truth about mind. Consciousness is never an empty box. It is always consciousness of something. You aren't just thinking, but always thinking of goals, loving a person, or fearing ghosts. Mind is like a powerful flashlight in the dark. The beam itself has no shape, but where it points, world appears, becoming your reality. Intentionality is the inseparable link between watcher and object. You hold flashlight, and what appears is your choice. At Princeton University, cognitive psychology studies on selective attention offer real evidence matching Husserl's vision. Scientists performed the invisible gorilla experiment, asking participants to count ball passes by a team, focusing on target. Most people completely missed a gorilla walking across court right before eyes. This research proves our consciousness doesn't reflect world passively, like a camera. Instead, mind actively constructs reality by filtering million data, focusing only on what it seeks. If consciousness points at failure and personal constant flaws, then even opportunities passing by like that invisible gorilla remain unseen by your blind eyes. Imagine consciousness is a telegraph sent from your mind, pointing at past. Pain awakens it, becoming heavy reality, suffocating your present, but pointing telegraph at practical solutions. The path out becomes clear instantly. Many are victims of their own unconscious intentionality patterns, using precious light to see lacks and social criticism, then wondering why world is dark. Husserl wants you to realize that you cannot change the external darkness, but you fully control the beam. Changing consciousness target doesn't just change your internal thoughts, it changes structure of experienced reality. This Husserl idea touches Eastern wisdom. All things are created by mind. The surrounding world is chaotic and neutral until mind projects intentionality there. If mind points at hatred, world becomes a battlefield. If mind points at compassion, world becomes understanding garden. Mind creates reality, is not magic, turning stone to real physical gold. It talks about shaping essential experience, like a sculptor seeing hidden gods inside raw stone. Your directed attention is the chisel, removing excess parts, revealing desired essence. Mastering intentionality requires sharp observation discipline. Husserl doesn't teach empty daydreaming, instead controlling attention to touch real essence. Facing any adversity, ask yourself deeply, where is my consciousness pointing now? If pointing at self-pity, turn the flashlight beam towards action steps. This is only way to avoid drowning in negativity. You must command your consciousness telegraph instead of letting random environment stimuli or past ghosts pull it away. Real liberation begins when realizing that world doesn't just appear before you. It appears how you prepared to see it clearly. Ending this cut. Reality is not fixed outside us, but a product of purposeful interaction. Each moment you pay real attention, you participate in building personal universe. Is your beam pointing at wounds, letting them bleed, or pointing at untapped present potential? Realize you are programming the brightness of your life through your focus. This leads deeper to next cut. Returning to life world. Feeling things truly before any language or theories interfere. Part 3. Stepping deep into the historical turning point in the life and thought of Ludwig Wittgenstein. We will witness an unprecedented act when a philosophical genius bravely overthrew and shattered his entire peak theoretical system built by himself. Previously, this story of cognitive shift is not merely an academic event, but a profound practical lesson on the capacity to let go of ego to face the objective truth of life. After publishing his first work titled Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, and receiving enthusiastic praise from the greatest minds of the 20th century, Ludwig Wittgenstein chose to abandon all brilliant glory, leaving the prestigious Cambridge University to become a primary school teacher in poor and remote villages in rural Austria. Right during that period of living, working, and interacting directly with young children, unpolluted by theories and with ordinary country people, he realized a fatal flaw within his own picture theory doctrine. He woke up realizing that language in real life is not neat, orderly, or following strict mathematical logic rules like a dogmatic textbook. Language is actually a living flow, constantly changing depending on the real context of life. Humans do not use words merely to picture reality, but they use words to work, to command, to pray, to joke, to connect emotions. The language map, no matter how perfect, can never contain or replace the endless richness of the living reality land out there. To provide a solid scientific foundation for this self-overthrowing turning point, modern studies from Harvard University on behavioral psychology and paradigm shift have brought extremely valuable conclusions. Scientists at Harvard conducted measurements of cognitive activity, proving that the human brain always tends to get trapped in rigid theoretical models when trying to impose subjective logic rules onto an objective reality that constantly changes. Empirical research indicates that when an individual bravely discards old prejudices and outdated dogmatic theoretical systems to directly face real life, the nervous system will undergo a powerful cognitive restructuring process, helping expand thinking boundaries and enhance flexible adaptability before every fluctuation. This paradigm shift not only liberates humans from the thought cage created by themselves, but also activates peak creative capacity, helping them see practical solutions that academic theories are completely helpless to touch. This perfectly aligns with the journey of Ludwig Wittgenstein when he decided to shed his title of brilliant philosopher to cleanse his perception through the most raw, genuine experiences of ordinary working life. This awakening leads to a profound practical realization that life is not a logic problem needing a solution, but a reality needing to be experienced directly. Most of the suffering and helplessness of modern humans arise when they stubbornly force reality to follow the language map and subjective expectations of themselves. They build perfect theories about an ideal lover, flawless career, or a self without faults. Then, when the reality land exposes scratches, chaos, and imperfections, they immediately fall into a state of panic, blame, and depression. Ludwig Wittgenstein teaches us a bitter lesson about letting go of ego and dogmatic thinking when reality does not match theory. Then wise people must bravely discard theory. Instead of trying to distort reality, you must learn to accept the incompleteness, diversity, and natural flow of life instead of stubbornly framing it into dead fixed words. The question raised for yourself right now is, are you as brave as Ludwig Wittgenstein, daring to look straight into the failures of old thinking models to personally shatter the dogmatic cage imprisoning your life or not? This revolutionary shift of thinking is completely consistent and deeply compatible with the core spirit of Eastern philosophy, especially the non-attachment concept of Zen and Taoism. Sages since ancient times have always warned humans about the trap of language, comparing words to a finger pointing at the moon. Wise people will look in the direction of the finger to see the moon, while dogmatic people will stubbornly clutch the finger mistakenly, thinking it is the light of truth. The act of self-overthrowing his theoretical system by Ludwig Wittgenstein is a peak manifestation of the non-attachment spirit, discarding all names and rigid definition systems to return to the raw nature of life reality. Letting go of this intellectual ego is not a suicide of knowledge but a great rebirth, opening the way for a new era of thinking, much more free, flexible, and practical, abandoning the outdated map to walk with bare feet on the reality land is the ultimate key for humans to shatter all illusions, heal all cognitive wounds, and achieve the state of true wise freedom in life. Part 4. Language Games Concept. In the later phase of Ludwig Wittgenstein, brings a fresh horizon, shattering rigid mathematical logic to embrace the flow of daily real life. He discovered that words do not possess fixed, unchanging meanings in dictionaries. Instead, meaning is born entirely from practical use within specific human contexts. He firmly asserted that every social environment, community, or human relationship operates exactly like a game, where words are pieces, and humans must follow hidden unwritten rules together. All human misunderstandings, conflicts, and deep emotional suffering do not arise from pure malicious intent. Instead, they happen when people stubbornly impose rules of one specific game onto an entirely different game. A word spoken in one space can build, but thrown into another with different rules, it becomes a dangerous weapon or meaningless friction, trapping minds in fierce arguments and deep mental helplessness. At Oxford University, studies on social linguistics and behavioral contexts offer clear and valuable empirical proof. Leading scientists at Oxford tracked long-term human interactions in various environments, concluding that the brain automatically adjusts perception and word interpretation depending entirely on surrounding reference systems. This research indicates that when a word is uttered, its true meaning never lies within surface grammatical structures. Instead, it is determined by non-linguistic factors like gestures, attitudes, personal relationships, and social conventions of that particular space. When humans fail to recognize shifts in these reference systems, they immediately experience severe cognitive conflict, creating heavy psychological pressure on the central nervous system. Modern science from Oxford once again illuminates the vision of Ludwig Wittgenstein, proving that language is not a passive reflection system of reality. Instead, it is a sequence of flexible social actions requiring humans to continuously understand the rules to achieve harmony in mutual perception. Let us analyze a practical core metaphor provided by Ludwig Wittgenstein to expose the root issue, the chessboard and rules of moving pieces. Imagine the knight on a chessboard only has value and meaning when moving in a strict L shape according to conventions of this game. You cannot bring that knight onto a Chinese chess board, forcing it to jump over other pieces according to foreign rules. In real daily life, most family and social conflicts arise precisely from this mismatch between different language games. Look at the ordinary relationship between husband and wife during a daily argument. A husband, after a tiring day at the office, tends to bring the exact language game of workplace logic right into the domestic space, using correctness analysis and mechanical solutions to converse, while the wife is communicating using a completely different language game, a game of shared emotions, empathy, and the deep need to be heard. When the wife says, "You do not care about me anymore," the husband instantly uses workplace logic, listing material facts like paying rent, buying groceries, and working extremely hard. The husband is playing a logic game on an emotional board, while the wife is playing an emotional game on a logic board. They speak the same language, but operate on two entirely different rules, resulting in both feeling exhausted, deeply misunderstood, and alienated. This profound understanding of later Ludwig Wittgenstein helps us shatter rigid dogmas, liberating the mind from searching for absolute vague truths within language. Truth does not live inside dry dictionaries. Truth is how you use words to bring real connection and peace to reality. Your suffering and torment, trying to define what ideal love is, flawless career, or perfect self, actually stem from being trapped in abstract language games imposed by society. You forget that the meaning of those words must be written by your own genuine actions and real experiences within each present moment. Clinging to a dead definition forces you to continuously judge yourself and others, turning life into a chain of anxiety and gloom. When realizing language is a flexible tool, you learn to become much more compassionate, listening patiently to understand the rules of others before passing any judgment, healing fractures in relationships, and re-establishing deep peace within your own consciousness. This revolutionary shift of thinking shares a miraculous harmony and deep consistency with ancient Eastern philosophy, especially the flexibility of Tao. In Taoism, sages from thousands of years ago affirmed that the nature of reality is a natural flow, constantly changing and never framed within any fixed concept. Taoism emphasizes two core elements: time and position. An action or a word can be right at one moment but completely wrong at another, reasonable in one position but ridiculous in another. Philosophy of Ludwig Wittgenstein and Eastern wisdom meet completely. At one core point, language must serve life, bending with the flow of reality to change flexibly instead of becoming a rigid dogmatic system to bind humans when you shed the attachment to words, knowing how to flexibly change language games to fit every context of human life. Your soul will no longer be lost in the maze of useless debates, achieving the state of true wise freedom amid a changing world. Have you ever realized you are bringing strict workplace language rules to impose on your loved ones at home? Are you accidentally using dry logic pieces to respond to the emotional cries of your children or partner, then wondering why your home becomes cold and distant? Ludwig Wittgenstein is not just a philosopher, he is a teacher, showing us how to expand empathy boundaries by recognizing the games of others when you bravely step out of the correct and incorrect analysis trap, learning to listen and adjust words according to emotional contexts. You are performing the greatest shift to shatter all distance, rebuilding deep connections and walking freely on the reality land filled with deep understanding and love. Part 5. Private Language Argument by Ludwig Wittgenstein presents a profound intellectual shift, challenging old beliefs about human isolation. He sharply proved that a completely private language cannot exist in reality to describe inner sensations or secret emotional pain within an isolated individual. Wittgenstein argued that language must operate based on public rules and mutual social verification to possess true meaning. If you create a secret code comprehensible only to yourself to record private inner states, that system completely lacks objective standards of right or wrong, meaning it is not language, but a hollow, imaginary game instead. Proving language is inherently social shatters the illusion of absolute mental isolation. Affirming our soul is never a lonely, isolated island, disconnected from the surrounding shared world. At Princeton University, empirical research on shared reality theory provides valuable evidence from behavioral psychology. Leading scientists at Princeton demonstrated that human cognitive balance and emotional healing cannot exist within absolute isolation of the inner mind. Research indicates that when an individual isolates themselves, falling into the trap of self-suggestion and continuously labeling their personal pain using a closed thinking loop, cognitive and social processing regions will immediately suffer severe decline, triggering heavy symptoms of clinical depression and chronic anxiety. Science from Princeton affirms that humans can only re-establish deep inner peace and psychological stability when stepping outside to interact and share their emotions with the community through a shared language system recognized by society. This harmony once again validates Wittgenstein's vision, wishing to pull humans out of the glass cage of conceptual loneliness, returning to the vibrant shared reality. The practical core of this philosophy helps us untie the deepest psychological knots modern humans face daily, which is intense loneliness and the false belief that nobody can ever understand their unique pain. During deep crisis, you often close your heart, speaking gloomy private words, believing your experience is entirely unique. Wittgenstein used strict philosophical logic to prove that even words you use to name pain, like trauma, isolation, or deep despair, are not your exclusive private property. They were born from human society, nourished by the shared common language, meaning your suffering can always be understood, shared, and deeply connected when you bravely discard the private language cage, stepping outside to share your voice with others. You realize all isolation walls dissolve. Is your mind trapped inside the maze of lonely thoughts, drowning your life with negative self-suggestion loops? This liberating thinking shares a deep harmony with the concept of interbeing in ancient Eastern philosophy, especially within Buddhism and Taoism. Eastern wisdom always emphasizes that everything in the universe never exists independently, but relies on each other, interacting to coexist. A single raindrop can only endure when merging into the vast ocean. An individual can only find truth and lasting peace when letting go of arrogant ego, merging into the shared reality of human life. The philosophy of Wittgenstein and Eastern wisdom meet completely at one core point, shattering the illusion of absolute isolation of the self, returning humans to the source of empathy and flexible social interaction. When understanding your world is always connected with the world of others, you learn to listen, learn to share, opening your heart to receive positive energies from community, healing all cognitive wounds and achieving a harmonious lifestyle amid this world. Part 6. Therapeutic Silence Concept by Ludwig Wittgenstein leads us to a supreme peak of mental healing, where language ends. His immortal quote states clearly that what we cannot speak about, we must pass over in absolute silence. This is not intellectual failure, instead, it is wisdom of a mind penetrating all words. Wittgenstein pointed out that language has an ultimate boundary and sacred realities. Profound human experiences completely transcend all verbal structures when you stubbornly use dry theories and narrow definitions to analyze and judge those sacred moments. You accidentally suffocate genuine life reality, switching to a fake anxious existence. Therapeutic silence is the ultimate key to step out of conceptual mazes, returning to connect fully with reality, exactly as it is right now. At Princeton University, scientific studies on behavioral psychology within The flow experience. Offer highly valuable empirical conclusions. Leading psychologists at Princeton proved that when humans achieve peak focus or experience deep inner peace, all internal dialogue and word labeling stop completely. Empirical research indicates that temporarily interrupting language flow to focus on raw perception helps relieve psychological pressure, balancing emotional systems and enhancing self-healing capacity. Modern science from Princeton affirms that active silence is not negative emptiness, but a powerful tool helping humans absorb real resources around him. This completely validates Wittgenstein's vision regarding silence power when humans bravely discard linguistic weapons to directly live and feel life surrounding them. Let us thoroughly understand the classic metaphor of the ladder used by Ludwig Wittgenstein to awaken humanity. He compared language and philosophical arguments to a useful ladder, helping humans climb the understanding wall, viewing the entire objective reality land out there. But when you stand on the top, seeing the vibrant, genuine world with your own eyes, the only wise action is to bravely discard the ladder away. If you stubbornly clutch the language ladder on top, you become a trapped, lonely prisoner unable to move freely on reality land. In daily life, most humans suffer because they cannot let go of the ladder continuously, using explanations and abstract definitions to justify actions or judge others. Are you brave enough to discard the word ladder, walking with bare feet on your own reality land now? This cognitive liberation by Ludwig Wittgenstein reaches absolute harmony with ultimate ancient Eastern philosophy, especially the non-attachment to words in Zen Buddhism and the opening statement of Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, stating the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Eastern enlightened sages realized thousands of years ago that supreme truth and genuine life nature must be experienced with the soul, never debated on the lips. When words arise, reality is instantly divided and distorted. Wittgenstein philosophy and Eastern wisdom meet completely at one core. Coordinate language is merely a temporary tool helping us perceive reality. Use words flexibly to serve life, knowing when to stay silent to heal perception, when shedding attachment to words, knowing how to discard the ladder, living fully within the present reality. Your soul achieves true wise freedom and peace amid a changing world.